if you don't mind, I just started recording, so say something.
Exciting.
Okay, yeah, okay. I think you're on. I think we can hear you.
I'm
So,
incriminating myself.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Self-crimination.
that's right. Well, look, you know what? Like I always say, like don't break the law, but if you do, just like STFU, right? Like don't say shit if you have a mouthful. Okay?
There you go.
You don't know anything. So anyway, like actually, I'm glad you're on because I wanted to. It was interesting, last time we spoke, and we've like sort of text chatted during the week because there's this you have this like neighborhood, excuse me, block war going on with you and the dog nut neighbor. And to recap, and I'll just go through it as in terms of my understanding. You can interject or correct me where I'm wrong. But so the neighbor's got Barky McBarkerson. He's serenading the neighborhood. He's trespassing and behaving dangerously, etc., etc. So you make a civil request to the dog owner to control the dog. And instead of doing that, like it's like they're incapable of doing the right thing. Instead, they escalate. They threaten to beat you up or kill you or whatever. They make physical threats. So you file a restraining order, right? So that restraining order was filed last Friday, I believe, or submitted to them,
I
served last
think so,
Friday.
yeah.
Okay, so it was served last Friday.
It's over to the weekend, I think.
Okay. And what was what came of that? What was the response to that?
Well, nothing yet. The court date's set like 2 weeks from now.
Okay, so they like contested it. Like, why is there a court hearing?
Do you want more information? They don't do an ex parte unless there's physical harm imminent.
Okay, so what does that
I
mean?
could probably argue that, but
Yeah. So
like
what
a
is
domestic or whatever,
yeah
domestic minor,
yes?
whatever.
So what does that mean though? Does that mean that because my understanding is like with a restraining order. Hey, Google guys in. What's up, man?
Hey, I might have to drop out at some point tonight because I need to wake up early tomorrow, but
That's all right.
I'll
Yeah.
be.
I was just grilling Kidder about the restraining order he filed against the dog nutter. It's good info. So anyway, and we'll get to some other stuff in a minute. So does that mean that the restraining order is like, so let's say the guy came over right now and said like, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? Does that mean he gets arrested or what happens?
It's not in effect yet.
It's not in
They
effect yet.
so my state has 3 different ways they can do it. I don't know what the hell they are, and I'd have to look at what he's told me, but they can do it without the other party, or they flat out deny it, or different things.
Okay.
That's how it works. Yeah, they can do it with or without the other party,
Okay.
but it's not an imminent threat, so they want a hearing, and the other guy can just not show up, and we can probably get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how is it? Because you told me, I think in the text chat that you were driving the neighbor's car and he thought you were the
God, that
neighbor.
was funnier than hell.
Yeah, tell us about that. Yeah, it sounds funny.
I was taking the neighbor's car out for a test drive after fixing some rusty fuel and brake lines, and the woman come running out waving and whatever, and she saw my face, and her face was immediate horror. It was just really funny.
It's good.
I come back and the neighbor's talking to her, and she just glances at me. I was like, "Oh, so not so tough now, are you?"
Yeah, well, it's funny because like the tables are turned. These people are like deep down, they're like cowards because you've like turned the tables on them. Um, and it's a total respect, man. It's like even if the whole like restraining order thing doesn't work out, but it's like
Oh,
they
it's got to.
yeah, but even so, it's like they know because it's like now they're like, oh shit, like somebody's gonna hold me accountable or even try to. Oh yeah, it's like they're. I tell you, these people, they're all the same. It's like they're just nasty and belligerent, but until like they're actually confronted with like painful consequences, then they just like BTFO. They're like all the same. They're all the
They're just
same.
like dogs,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
all
yep,
barking and getting all up in your space, and then boom, and then they run away screaming.
yeah, yeah. Hey, but didn't you say maybe it was your lady friend indicated it looked like they were moving out?
She said that the garage floor was empty and she was moving a box around, but they
Yeah,
also might just be moving things so they can park their cars inside. But they
yeah.
haven't worked inside for the last 2.5 years, so I don't,
Maybe they're afraid you'll like vandalize their cars. You'll be out there. Ha ha ha! I got you now, dog nutters. R R R.
yeah.
But that
Yeah.
happens. That's pretty common. Also, is that they realize it's like okay they need like weak like compliant victims and they see okay we're not going to get that here so they'll move on so and people like that too I find have like very unstable lives they move a lot they change jobs a lot so forth so
I was gonna say, don't get your hopes up, because when I first bought my property in 2018, the my neighbor a quarter mile away with the dogs told me he was planning to leave next year. So I was like, okay, just one year of these three barking dogs, because he only had three at the time,
oh
and I
jeez.
won't have to deal with them anymore. And of course he didn't. He stayed and bought more property and got more dogs and started letting the dog run at large between his two properties. So
Well, of course.
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope it kicks him into high gear to go find someone else to harass.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably what they're looking for.
And they got
Even
four
like
kids and two dogs and two adults in a little tiny corner lot.
even like with mine, was funny was I mentioned this last time, but after the first round with the nutters across the street was and they were under a ton of pressure, so they got rid of the dogs. They're gone. And so we're dog free for a while. And I remember I was on one of these. I think it was even before I started blogging. I was on one of these, some forum talking about this, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess they learned their lesson." And some smart ass, replies, "Oh no, they didn't. They'll get more dogs within like a year. Like count on it." And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think they learned their lesson. Well, the smart ass was right because it was like a year and change later, they got another dog. It wasn't as bad as the first pair. It was like way less bad, but still, it was a problem. And that's the thing is like this problem never cures because even if they move away, another like nutter like loon is going to like move on to the block and like repeat. It might not be the same kind of thing, it might not be exactly the same, but it'll be similar. It's endemic. It's like COVID, it's everywhere.
Yep.
Yep.
That's why I was concerned when I saw someone bought the lot that's directly to the east of mine, because before it was only me and that the 15 dog guy on the whole block, and now there's someone else there that's like right next to me, not a quarter mile away. And nobody was there at the time because it was like winter and snowing, but maybe when the weather's nice they'll be back to camp and bring like 5 dogs and have them running all over my property because I don't have a fence
sure.
to keep them out.
Jeez. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is you're always on edge. Because I don't know
Yeah.
what the probability of that is, but I hear you, because you're always like, okay, when is this problem going to start again? Like, when is it going to repeat itself? Because there's no restraint on these people. They can just
Oh.
do whatever, or at least they think they can do whatever they want. So.
And they're so stupid. They're like just do reckless, arrogant things like, Kidder, you're the woman posted about the dog chasing bikers. That should be enough to get it put down right there.
Chasing and biting.
Yeah, chasing and biting, and she posted it publicly on Facebook.
Yep.
What is she, like, proud of the fact that her dog is, like, attacking random people, or?
Proud that it ran at least.
Do you know who those folks on bikes were?
No, I don't.
Yeah. It'd be good to, if you could, to, like, loop them in. Maybe it was a dump dogs guy, because he posts about, dogs. He goes for long bike rides, and it's like, it's just a never ending series of, like, aggressive dogs,
Yeah, that's why I had to stop riding bikes.
And you can't, too, as it'll injure people. I think, it was one of those, like, biking tournaments. I think it was a viral video, maybe in France. And, a dog ran out. One of the, bike riders hit him and, like, went flying. And everybody thought, oh, is the dog okay? It's like, who cares? But
yeah, I made a video about that. It was like the Tour de France or whatever, and the dog, and it destroyed the bike too, because the tires are so flimsy on those racing bikes. They crumple when they hit a dog because they're like tiny, thin tires.
Yeah, I mean, it's even true with, like, cars. You get to, like, you hit, like, a big dog with your car, it'll, like, seriously mess up your vehicle. But
I pulled the message up from the attorney here.
what's he got to say?
Well, for the court, they can grant an order without a hearing, deny an ex parte order but schedule a hearing, or just straight deny and dismiss. And the hearing, if the petitioner fails to appear, the case is probably dismissed. The respondent fails to appear, then the court's probably just gonna grant it.
Yeah.
And if he does appear, well, they're probably gonna grant it. Yeah, so that got the, we'll see. We should have an answer within, what, a week now.
All this, because they just won't, like, control their dog. It's like we have all these, like, escalating conflicts. Of course, maybe the nutters will say, like, well, why don't you just, get used to it? It's just a dog being a dog. It's like, fuck that.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
been my moral of the whole story.
Well,
I asked for one thing and we're here.
And because, too, it's like, what, we have a right to, like, live in peace. And yeah, these people and their dogs, like, strip of us that. That's the problem, because, like I said, even back when I first got into this, I mean, this is an existential civil rights issue, because dogs and dog people, like, reserve they reserve the power to strip the rights from others, right to life, right to body integrity, right to use our, public and private spaces in peace, self-defense rights, it's like, it's all gone in the presence of Fido, and it's just wrong, like, yeah, we're like second-class citizens, below these mutts. But what happened, because, that's because it goes back to, segue into the political stuff, because, they've been agitating for this for 75 years, probably. I mean, it's got more acute the last 15 or 20 or so. And, You know, they've created a whole system that's, you know, rigged in favor of the dog. And that's why we have that's why we're in the situation that we're in.
And the ADA, that was the turning point. Like,
Yeah, that was, well, it was part of it because the funny thing was, you know, when that passed, I think initially, I mean, I'm not sure of all the iterations of the law. You know, I'm fluent in the current, you know, iteration, like the current, you know, wording of it. But I mean, back in the 90s, like you almost never saw like a quote service dog. It was so rare. I mean, it was just almost, and the funny thing was, I think the first time, and I did a video about this, or well, it was my first video on, you know, this whole, you know, service dog situation. Was that the first time I think I saw one for real, it was like a total fail. I mean, that's a true story because I'm like, I'm in New York City. I forget where I was, like maybe like the upper 30s. And, you know, I saw this dog like basically walking a blind man, and I'm staring at him just because it was so unusual. I don't know if I'd ever seen it before. And of course, the dog walked the blind guy like right into a scaffold. I mean, it was like the cringiest thing I ever saw, but you like almost, but I guess so that was like, I guess technically a legit service dog. But now it's like every third time I go out, you see some, you know, you see a perfectly able person basically just walking their dog. You know, sometimes they'll bother to put a service dog vest on it. Sometimes not, but it's like, yeah, the 99% of them are fake. But
Yeah, we were in the hardware store, and this guy had a service dog that was playing with a ball.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that's a service dog, all right.
yep, yeah. I'm sure he was doing all kinds of service with that. But so did
I mean,
so did everybody, you know, print off a copy of my draft and send it to their legislators.
I think you're going to be unfortunately disappointed in all of us.
You're bad people. Well, you know, I try, you know, because I sent mine in, and actually I'm going to forward like copies to like my county sheriff and the county administrator too. But, you know, that's what gets the ball rolling, you know, and we can say, look, you know what, you know, we gave you legit service dog people. You know, he offered like a compromise, because probably what's going to happen is at some point it's going to get so bad. Maybe it'll be like post-apocalypse, like, you know, post-Walking Dead or whatever, but it'll just be like, you know what, you can't take your dog off private property unless you're going to the vet, maybe. You know, because this is like ridiculous. It's like, you know, yeah, I shouldn't really have to dodge like, you know, piles of dog shit like in the grocery store. You know, I shouldn't have to listen to dog barking like, you know, in the library. At some point, you know, what can't go on forever won't. So
That seems pretty ableist, if you ask me.
yeah. I'm just a bad person. I can't help it. But, you know, you know, print it off and send it in. It can't hurt, you know. Even if you use a fake name, like put "I hate dogs" exposed on it. I'm sure he's got his copy in already.
Put Leo Smathers on it.
Leo Smathers. Yeah. Yeah, and for those who don't know, oh, Google guy, we are recording this. Yeah, Leo Smathers was supposedly that's the I Hate Dogs host, according to I Hate Dogs Exposed. You know, I believe that, like, you know, I believe in Bigfoot, but Leo Smathers. So, what did you guys did you guys watch that last IHD video on the kid that was killed in Britain? Came out today.
I was gonna, but it was an hour long.
Yeah, I was
It's
And
like
busy.
doing other shit.
gory. It's like the thing was, it was like, you know what? It just made me like so angry. I couldn't watch it. Like my blood pressure is just going up too much. It's just the same thing over and over. It's like, oh, it's an unfortunate accident. You know, nobody could
I
have
was
foreseen
going to
this.
say the same words.
Yeah. And then they show the
Unfortunate
dog, and it's like
accident.
they show the dog, and it's like the dog looked like it just came out of a fighting pit, like literally. Like, I mean, totally. It just looked like it was just a quintessential like murder mutt. It was hideous. I'm like, why did they like? What's like wrong with these people? You know? Oh my god! Of course, and this is in a place where pit bulls are banned. We're gonna say, well, it's not really a pit bull; it's a American bulldog cross. Har har har. Yeah, like that really matters.
They just call it a Staffordshire Terrier or
Yeah, or
some shit.
whatever. Yeah, they just lie. I mean, it's like every other place they do this. It serves no purpose because they just get around. They figure out whatever to get around the law. I think there though, like in Britain, they're a little more pro. At least I don't know. I don't know. Will the parents be like prosecuted criminally? Um, you think there's going to be any jail time?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know. Over there, they're better about that.
I'm not up on this case. I have no idea what it was.
Well, it's basically like couple, family of three, 4-year-old girl. They adopted this, murder, I guess, lab mix, or oh no, it was a bulldog cross, like wink, wink. And it was like, yeah, 2, 3 weeks later, it mauls a kid to death. 4-year-old girl.
Where was it? You said it
It
was
is in
international?
it was in Britain. Yeah, yeah. They've had like a big spike in I mean for them anyway in basically maulings and dog maulings and killings recently, like the past year or so. Because they have BSL there, but like most of these BSL experiments, it's like it's very deeply flawed. So, this is if you take a look at the dog, they showed the dog in the video, and it's like it was just the most hideous. Literally, it's like something out of a horror movie. Why
I
would
think he's misunderstood.
yeah, just me. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, totally. Well, you know what it is yeah, pit bulls. Pit bulls are misunderstood by like pit bull people. The rest of us, like, we understand them perfectly. But part of it they'll argue it's like, well, it wasn't like necessarily like a full bred pit bull. It was like a bulldog slash like American bully mix, but it was a hideous like murder mutant. Um, no sane person would have something like that in their home. But yeah, now there's like more calls to like, add to their, because I think they have, I've written about this. They had the in Britain, I mean, they have, I think is it's like they ban like 4 dog breeds. And there's, calls to like, add more dogs to the list, but it's like, okay, like nobody's going to have to give up their dogs, right? Unless really what you want to do is like, restrict all dogs over a certain weight and size. And that, that basically takes the, endless rounds of the breed ID game off the table. But, but of course that's never going to happen, right? Because they reserve, oh, I can't have a 200-pound dog, even though like every cat over 20 pounds is banned. Oh, that's just wrong.
I think he'd have a tough time doing weight games. Then it's like, what if it grows? I don't know. It just
Well,
gets
that's
taken out if it doesn't take a craft that day, you know?
yeah, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, I don't mean to be, doggy sympathy, but also like,
well, I
yeah,
guess that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I guess there's like some leeway there, but you say, okay, it's like, any maybe only whitelist breeds that don't go over a certain size, which might include those, pocket bullies. puppies, like the nano pit bulls that, I don't know if you ever seen those. They're talking about like ugly. It's like, if ugly were art, they'd be like Michelangelo. They're like the most hideous little things, but they're not, I guess they're not that dangerous. I don't know. It's like, because they do this with every other like domestic animal. It's like, it's why you can have house cats, but not tigers. Why you can have, iguanas, but not crocodiles. And again, at least not without like a whole big pile of permits. But you can have any size dog you want. Even like Great Danes, I read about, and performing due diligence. Like a Great Dane can, really injure somebody just by like knocking them over. It's like being tackled by like a linebacker, but they say, oh yeah, you got these like enormous dogs everywhere. And they're taking like, enormous dumps everywhere. They leave a dump like, the size of a buffalo when they got a crap, and that's all over the place. But, I mean, I guess the answer is, yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I got one. Ban them all.
Yeah. It's Rule 308. That's what we need. Like, these people, they have like their own like code speak. Like, we need ours, Rule 308.
Special treats.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Special treats.
Yeah, special treats.
Like, it's like what they're doing when they say reactive. It's a vicious dog that's going to hurt someone. Oh no, he's just reactive. He's just
reactive, yeah.
skittish around strangers and doesn't do well with cats or children.
Well, right.
or
Well,
other-
yeah, that's what he says. Like, doesn't do well around cats or children. It's like, that means like, will kill cats and children. Reactive around men means like, will attack. Not only will, but like has.
Yeah.
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 A lot of it too is like, the thing is that probably like the answer is, similar to what I was saying the other day with, I mean, out of the answer, it's like part of it too is this dog thing. It's like too deeply ingrained in our society to really have a solution. But, you can mitigate these things, because think about it, like, if we had a one and done policy, which actually was what we had like back in the 70s, right? So if a dog attacks somebody, like if there's bloodshed or a bone broken, the dog's put down, right? Because today it's not. Like today it's allowed to like offend, over and over and over again. Particularly all these murder mutts. I'll bet you even like, we may never know, but like that killing in Britain, was it probably that like, they got it from a shelter, and I'm sure it had a history, even if it's not like official history. But if you had a one and done policy, right? Like, forget about like dog breeds or the size of dogs or whatever. That would probably take care of like 90 to 95% of this, because under that policy, a pit bull would be like impossible to own. So instead of like 35% of the pit bull population being put down every year, it would be like 90%. They'd be like impossible to own, because if you say, okay, if there's an incident, the dog gets put down, you probably should like, like prosecute the owner also. But even like aside from that, it's like they wouldn't make it. It's kind of like what I said the other week with, the service dog, whitelisting or blacklisting of service dog breeds. Like, if you apply any standards to service dogs, like even the most like cursory thing, all the pit bulls wash out. They're gone, because they can't, they're not going to make it. You can't train them to do anything useful. All they do, all they're good at, all they're good for is like attacking. That's it. So, and the thing is like, if you apply standards to the, overall dog population, that basically gets rid of the pit bulls. And they're thinking like, why not just ban them all? But the thing is, like, you know what? I've been like up to my eyeballs in this for what, like almost 13 years. And the thing is that taking on the pit bulls directly, like confronting that head on, just doesn't work. You're just going to get your ass handed to you. The way to do it is to go after them like asymmetrically, like indirectly. That can get you some traction. You got to think out of the box, right? So.
I'd rather have the one and done than a pit bull ban.
Well, yeah, because a lot of like with a pit bull ban, like people probably at best, even like your almost your ideal BSL arrangement, maybe you get rid of like half of them at best, but that means there's still lots of plenty of murder mutts out there. Well, that's the other thing too, is that particularly these ADEP people is they present it as a false choice, right? They're basically saying that BSL and like one and done, or those are like mutually exclusive things. And they're not. In fact, really one actually complements the other, right? Because they're saying, okay, these dog attacks are not something we want. Dogs should not be just attacking random people. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. So we're going to start, prosecuting them. And you could say, okay, some dog breeds are so bad that they don't even get one and done. Like pit bulls are 0 and done, right? So pits are 0 and done, and the rest of them are 1 and done. And that takes care of all the sketchy, like bulldog crosses, lab mixes, terrier mixes, and so forth, right? Because
like other dogs attack besides all dogs attack, and
sure,
like the pit bull, it probably wouldn't cover dogs that are even worse than pit bulls, like the Dogo.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's the thing it's like that's another, it's another one of my like really controversial viewpoints. But actually, pit bulls are not the most dangerous breed of dog.
They're like the second or third. You got the Corso.
Yep.
Pit bulls are like number 3 or 4 on the
on the list. And the other thing you got to figure too is, I mean, that the number of dog breeds is theoretically unlimited because you can. I mean, look, none of this stock existed 5,000 years ago. None of it, right? All this stuff was created via like selective breeding. So going after like specific breeds, I'm not saying it's not worth doing. Fine, ban them. Whatever. But that doesn't get every other dog in creation off the hook. It shouldn't. Because you see things like the guy would ask him, it's like, okay, you have like, a Doberman or a German Shepherd that's injured like 5 people on 4 separate occasions. Like, what do you do with that dog? Do you just like, because remember like the last time, I went on an epic rant last time, but okay, we just crushed the pit nutters. We just literally like crucify them. And we kill their dogs. But what do you do? Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you do? Like with the German Shepherd or the Dogo that's like attacked a bunch of people? Do you just let them keep doing it? It's like, no. You need to like, they get, okay, I mean, you could argue they haven't hit the threshold for a ban, but that doesn't mean that they get an unlimited number of get out of jail free cards, right? So you've got 2 scenarios. You've got pit bulls and the like are 0 and done, and the rest of them are 1 and done. And I think that takes care of it. And also too, if you have like, if some breed of murder mutt like slips through the cracks, still at least you've got the tools to go after at least the individual offenders, which we don't even have that now, because right now it's like, well, we'll only do prior restraint. That's it. Like no restraint after the fact. But they don't do the prior restraint and they don't do the post restraint either. So there's no solving the problem. You can't stop the dog before it attacks somebody, and you can't stop the dog after it attacks somebody.
Ideally, it would be zero and done for all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever see the picture of the Chihuahua that bit the woman's eyelid off?
I think I heard about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that should be enough for a blanket ban on Chihuahuas. Just
Was that
ban all little demons.
Was that the owner or was that some random person?
I believe it was a client of a hairdresser or
I remember this story, kind of.
Okay.
like that. She went to the person's house to get her hair done or whatever, and the Chihuahua was there, and it jumped up and ripped her eyelid off.
Jeez. You know, that's the thing is like, even these so-called, they talk about like, oh, these like, gentle breeds or these little dogs aren't that dangerous. Like nothing else like does that. Like, do rabbits do that? Like, I mean, basically like project aggression that way, or cats even. Like, no, it's like, yeah, even these like little dogs are like, they're aggressive as hell. I mean, yeah, they don't have the capacity to like dismember somebody, but it's like, even these so-called like quote safe dog breeds they're just aggressive as hell. And you see it all the time. Just walk down the street anywhere. I told you that there's this one walk I go on where like these little two like Jack Russell Terriers, they come like tearing out. They're like, they're like, really barking, really aggressive. And I gotta like, kick. I gotta like it's on a dirt road. I gotta like kick sand at them to like BTFO them, But it's like, yeah, no other animal does that. None. Like cats don't do that. Rabbits don't do that. Chipmunks don't. Nothing. Alligators. Nothing. It's
My grandma, way back when, had an old nasty cat. Like if you didn't go to pet it like with intent, it would be pissed with you. But if you just stayed away from it, you had no problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, cats are like, I mean, a cat will obviously, I mean, any animal can bite you, but cat, a lot of it, it's kind of like wildlife. I mean, if you leave them alone, they leave you alone, which is a pretty good arrangement. It's like, that's a good, but dogs are not like that. They're probably like the only animal in existence that, regularly, like, I'm talking about like projects aggression, that'll actually like seek out targets to, aggress towards. It's like, every time you talk about the little dogs, it's like one thing if it's some big murder mutt, but like these little dogs, I mean, think about how stupid that is. I mean, probably the nutters would argue that they're like, quote, brave, but no. It's like, it'd be like one of us, like, like just flat out, like physically attacking, like, a buffalo or rhinoceros or something. And I think about how dumb that it would be.
Dogs have done that too. I remember a video, these idiots brought their, I think it was a pit bull, to the national park. I forgot which one it was, but it's the one with all the bison, and the stupid pit does what it was bred to do and tries to attack the bison, and the bison just like tosses it into the air easily with its head, with its horns.
That's
and
what they
runs
do,
off.
and it's like, pit bulls are, hyper aggressive, but I had the thought too, it's like they say, oh, it was, there's a lot of it too, particularly a lot of these, ADEP people or the anti-pit bull, like dog people are like, oh yeah, like pit bull, they're so, they're not, my dog or like other dogs aren't like that at all, But you think about it, it's like, the pit bull's aggression was basically, bred in from other like canine stock, right? Like you can't make something out of nothing. It's kind of like, I've got a lot of family up in New England, and if you've ever been up there, and they probably do it, they probably even do it like in Minnesota even, the maple syrup. their maple syrup, the real stuff is, it's from tree sap and the sugar maples. And they just basically, they boil it down. It's like a 40-to-1 ratio, give or take. But the thing is, they're starting with, a stock that's sweet to begin with, right? Like they're not just distilling it out of seawater, right? So the thing is, like with the pit bulls, it's like, yeah, they've, managed to, sort of like, distill that, like, perfect, like violent, like aggressive nature. But again, it was distilled from this other canine stock that was
Yeah,
aggressive to begin with, right?
hyper aggressive terrier
Yeah.
mixed with the muscly, stocky bulldogs.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. So they took the aggression and kind of mixed it up with the form. But yeah, that's the thing is, it's like, people, I always love to deflect onto other animals, but, dogs, I mean, 99, you talk about like an animal projecting aggression towards a human. It's like, yeah, 99.999% of the time, it's a dog, and maybe, okay, disproportionate, maybe like 60% of the time it's a pit bull. But even the rest of it, it's still, it's virtually always a dog, and the thing is, all that bad behavior has been normalized. It's like, yeah, it's a dog being a dog, and everybody's got to get used to it. So,
I've had small dogs aggress towards me way more than pit bulls.
yeah. Oh, yeah, like those Jack Russell Terriers. And I've seen it, all kinds of places, yeah, little mop dogs and Shih Tzus. I actually blogged about a Shih Tzu attack, last decade, because I had, again, a lot of these, dog people were like, oh yeah, all this stuff is like, pit bulls and pit nutters are just the worst. And so I blogged about this Shih Tzu attack, right? And if you don't know, a Shih Tzu is a little, it's a mop dog that weighs about 15 pounds, maybe a little more, for folks who don't know. And it was in my county. And maybe I'll link the blog to the video description. But so this little kid, a 5-year-old boy, he's like riding around in this toy Jeep. Shih Tzu attacks him. And he's not like life-altering injuries, but he had like lacerations on multiple parts of his body. He had to go to the emergency room, needed a bunch of stitches and antibiotics and so forth, But what was interesting was, the reaction to it, because it was the same, I called it, the blog is called Proto-Nuttery, because, again, all these dog people, they always blame, they always say, oh yeah, it's pit nutters, they blame victims. And I'm like, no. Because if you like read like the comment sections, like from the newspaper article and the like, all these dog people were blaming the kid. They're blaming the kid. They're blaming the parents. They were blaming everybody except the dog and the dog owner. Even though it was a totally unprovoked attack. The kid didn't do anything, but all these, and that's why I get so mad at those people, because it's like, really, you get pissed at like pit nutters for like blaming victims. You blame victims, and that's how this stuff, because they normalize that too. Whenever somebody's attacked by a dog, you always blame the victim or somebody other than the dog and the dog owner, always. And what that did was, it created a perfect environment for this whole pit bull like problem to just explode everywhere. Because there's no tools to deal with it. It's like, yeah, somebody, a baby boy gets ripped in half. It's like, well, must have been his fault, right? I mean, it was always the victim's fault before. What's different now? Except maybe like, yeah, there's obviously the severity is worse, but so what? So.
And there's really a harmless dog. Like would you let some homeless junkie poke needles into your skin and the needles have been dipped in feces?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what happens when a chihuahua bites you with its
Yeah.
little needle.
Well, but no.
Uh,
Wait, isn't a dog's mouth like cleaner than yours? Isn't that what they say?
According to them, but
According to,
no.
well, the answer is like, hey, is that like before or after it ate a pile of turds?
I always like going onto the Facebook group, Why Are Dog People Like This? And they allow nutters in there. And all these nutters are like, I'm not the dog people you're talking about. It was
Yeah.
like, what do you mean, dude?
Yeah.
I'm not like those other dog people. Like, how do you think you can self-identify against whatever? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah, they're part of it. It's I mean, I guess there's probably still like a handful of like sane dog people out there, but like many aspects of our political and cultural paradigm or whatever, they've become like very, very extreme. It's sort of an all or nothing scenario. Um, you talk about haters. I know a lot of it too is like, I never really considered myself a dog hater. Not that they're like not hate worthy. I guess it's just that, you know, the animals themselves, they're just dumb animals. They're not, I just can't invest a lot of emotional capital in hating the animals themselves. Dog culture, dog
Mhm.
politics, that's hate worthy. That I hate. That gets
Dog
me
owner.
wound up. Yeah. Dog owners. Yep. But it
They're the
seems,
ones.
yeah. But, the thing is like, it seems like, they set a standard where there's no middle ground on this. Either you just adore and idolize every dog in creation, and like you literally worship Fido like he's the furry Jesus, or you're a hater. Right? Like either you just have a dogs first, like a total dogs first worldview, or you're the Antichrist. There's like no, and I said obviously there's a lot of daylight between those two worldviews, but they set that standard. It's and the problem is, like I was saying last time, is that because even like again, a lot of these dog people recognize that there's problems here, particularly like maybe like their little mop dog got dismembered by a pit bull, or they're being barked out of their house, or their so-called legit service dog got attacked by a fake service dog. But they don't want to, and they probably like they say yes, there's a problem, but the issue is, and it goes back to what we were talking about last time. I re-listened to that segment, and there was like a ton of good material, but they don't like they haven't properly reconstructed. Because if somebody has like a dog's first worldview, or if that's the worldview, if that's the ethical or ideological framework that we're all kind of stuck in, there's no solution for any of these problems. None. Because they're always going to say, okay, Fido's best interests, and perhaps the owner's best interests also, are always the overriding priority. So there's no solving any of those problems within that framework. Like you have to say no. It's like at best, Fido's best interests are like a secondary priority. And then you could say, oh, okay, now we can solve some of these problems. But like I was saying, even like last week, it's like even some people, they may not even be dog owners, right? Somebody, they're being barked out of their house or whatever. And they're like, well, I don't want to complain because it might turn out bad for the dog. Like the owner will beat the dog or dump the dog in the shelter or whatever. But the problem with that is like I would say to these people, and I blogged about this too, it's like, why should I or anybody else take you seriously if you're literally putting the best interest of the dog ahead of yours? Like, why? Why should I care? Right? Because you're saying you haven't slept in 2 weeks because of this barky dog, but you don't want to do anything because you don't want the dog to be harmed or get in trouble. But it's like, okay, you're saying that, okay, you're fully, your worldview is that Fido can just do whatever he wants with no consequences. It's like, okay, then like enjoy your barking or being attacked in your own backyard or whatever the problem is. Because as long as you put the best interest of the dog first, it's like nothing's going to improve. Right?
If you complain, then you're part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even so much. I mean, they'll complain, but they won't.
Not complain as in bitch on Reddit. I mean,
right,
call
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and the problem is too many people are like that. They just, they're so worried about the dog's well-being, or not even that, not just the individual dog, but like Fido's reputation. You even see this in the dog attacks, like where a kid is attacked and the parent is a nutter, and they're like, oh, they don't want the kid to have a bad opinion of dogs. Right, you see this a lot. I mean, I Hate Dogs has posted stuff about that. Like, we don't want Junior to have like a bad opinion. We don't want him to come out of this with a bad opinion of dogs. And it's like, well, why not? Like, why is it so wrong to dislike dogs? Like, why is it like a requirement that all these kids just love every dog unconditionally? Right? It's like, you think, okay, it's like maybe they don't want to be around maybe they don't hate every dog in existence, but at least to say, okay, I don't want to be around large dogs or the dog breed that attacked me or whatever. But they're always like so concerned about, preserving, Fido's reputation and making sure that everybody continues to like dogs. It's like, why is that so important? Like, who cares? People, form their opinions, and they have a right to them, whether they're rational or not. Like somebody who'd say like survived like 3 plane crashes might not be big on air travel. And maybe that's okay. Not to air travel is, well, it's less safe now that they allow, murder mutts on the flight, but why can't they have, you could say, okay, yeah, you've been a sole survivor, because many of these people have been attacked multiple times. You've been a sole survivor of like 3 plane crashes. You don't want to fly anymore. You prefer to take the train.
Yeah, but my plane is safe. My plane will make you like flying.
Mine is different.
Yeah, mine's different. Yeah. But why not just respect that? They don't, and it's what they never ever respect the reason that anybody has for like disliking dogs. It's just, yeah, you mow on, you deranged, you delusional, or no, sorry, I said that wrong. You delusional.
I think my favorite line is, but my dog.
Yeah, but my dog. And it's like, fine.
Literally covers it all.
Even if let's say that's true, it's like, fine, keep your dog to yourself. I don't think that's a big ask, right? Because that's what they want to do, is they want to like foist their dog on everybody.
And I also get mad at people who don't necessarily have dogs, but when they see a dog, they start gushing over it and like encourage the people to bring their dog places where it doesn't belong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because then everyone's like that, and everyone wants my dog around them. Because because everywhere I go, there's people gushing over it. Like, no, not everybody wants your stupid dog.
Yeah, those people are like, well, they're virtue signaling because they think it's like, well, it's what I should do, right? It's like, it's what's expected of me socially, right? Because I got to, even though I'm not really a dog person, I got to like love them anyway and cut them like endless slack, you know. It's like, putting on clean underwear every day. You know, gotta love dogs. So, Chef Mudmeat put out a video. Actually, I was listening to that when you guys joined. It was actually it's her and her husband that were discussing the issue, but
Oh yeah, I gotta listen to that.
yeah,
I
it's
saw that.
probably interesting. Yeah, it's
But
probably interesting. Like I was saying the other week, it's like, the monologues are getting kind of dry. We need to do more stuff like this. Maybe something. Actually, this is great. Actually, that last segment was actually pretty good. The one from December was good too. It just had too many artifacts, too much background noise and distortion. I know what's going on. I gotta right now, I'm recording this, but it's just a single track recording. So cleaning up something like that isn't the easiest thing. I mean, I don't worry about it too much. It's like, look, it's not 60 minutes. So what else did we have? Let's see, we're getting like about an hour into this. Like, what else did we have on the Discord this week? There was, oh yeah, like Jay Sims posted. Well, it was under the Reddit deletes everything file. Like some guy writes, I killed 2 dogs in my unfenced rural backyard years ago. They're practically on the porch growling at my dog. So it's written by a dog person, which is probably interesting to the situation. Who had an electric collar and visible fence type thing. So that they're trying to be responsible. I'm not about to worry for my safety in my own yard because someone lets their large, aggressive dogs roam freely. Does that sound familiar to folks on this call?
it might.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the first line in my 4-page document against my neighbors.
Yeah. They, it says, I killed 2 dogs. I'm wondering why, why did the Reddit get deleted? Was it because he'd killed the dogs or perhaps because he was a dog person? Because that was something that's, well, actually kind of like a recurring, narrative in the Discord is that, like in these dog-free Reddits, people who are dog owners, like anybody who says, well, I own a dog or owned a dog, it's like, boom, deleted.
No, that wasn't dog free. That was in r/outdoors.
Oh, it was r/outdoors. Okay. Well, still, the same rules apply, but kind of maybe more loosely, but because it's like, look, yeah, somebody disrespected the almighty dog. So I guess that answers it then, because I could see, dog free would delete that because a guy said, oh, I'm a dog owner. So it's like, boom, gone. Or even a past dog owner.
Delete it for the other reason too, because they delete anything that talks about harming dogs, even in self-defense.
Yeah, because if he'd written deleted 2 bears that attacked me, they'd be like, oh, cool. What
Yep.
caliber did you use? Was it a, inquiring minds want to know, but you killed dogs, it's the
Yep.
Antichrist.
Coyotes, mountain lions, that's all fine.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, that stuff's all fair. Hogs, it's all good.
Just like our provoking conversation the other week. Because the sky is blue, Reddit's going to delete something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, look, those Reddit mods, they were provoked, Somebody sneezed.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is on R Outdoors. Yeah, I thought this was from one of the dog-free Reddits. But, some of those, folks who write in is they said, well, I adopted a dog and it was the worst thing I ever did. And they'll delete, those posts. But I think, that stuff is, I guess that the Reddit is dog free. So I guess it's okay, you have to be somebody who not only doesn't own a dog, but never did, that's like the qualification for, participating, I guess. But yeah, but the narrative from those people is important too. Even if they're not, like I said, not fully like or properly reconstructed, listen to what they have to say. That's important. And that's important to get out there too, because you can see, particularly if you have somebody, even folks in the Discord, it's like, they have relatives who, or friends who are, seeing like owning a dog as like some aspirational lifestyle. It's like, yeah, when I get my own place, I'm getting me a dog. It's like, and it's going to be totally awesome. And it's like, well, you might want to consider the downsides of that. But that's why, like, I think that, yeah, the narrative from those people. So, the only problem though is it's interesting, like current dog owners, you never know. I don't know if you can like really trust them. Like I was saying, it's like, are they, properly like reconstructed, or even past dog people? It's like, are they properly reconstructed? If you know what I mean, like, has their worldview actually changed? Like, are they no longer like dogs first people? It's tough to say because really only they know that. So. Yeah, what else do we have out here? Actually, Kidder, like your ordinance is actually really good. So the barking or whatever mutt noise it is repeatedly over at least a 3-minute period of time, with a 30-second or less lapse of time between each animal noise during the 3-minute period, or intermittently for a majority, like 5 minutes or more of a 10-minute period. That's a really good ordinance. I mean, most places, almost everywhere, it's at least 10. The ordinance actually that I fought, the quote anti-barking ordinance they were trying to pass in my county that I actually actively fought. They wanted to increase the consecutive disruption from 10 minutes to 30.
It's fucking insane.
It is. That's nuts, And
Like I told the neighbor, hell, a minute, 2 minutes, I'm already going insane. I want it.
Yeah,
I
mean, and third, and they wanted to put in multiple household rule. And again, like I said, this is not the purpose of this law. Is not noise mitigation, right? It's to protect noisy dogs. That's the purpose. It's like the whole thing is inverted. It's like everything is like the opposite of what it's supposed to be. It's like, this is a pro-barking law. Like, what the...
My ordinance is the anti-barking law, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, at least on paper. I'm not even saying that's good. It should be like 5 seconds, but at least on paper, you guys got... you got it together. You got a good law there. I mean, in terms of like, if you grade it on a curve, you're like an A-.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Yeah.
I almost called in the other day, but got him again. I got video of him. Oh, he's gone.
How much was the citation for? What are they getting fined? Do you know?
I have no idea what the amount was. I hope it was a lot.
Yeah. Some places they'll like escalate the fines as the, offenses rack up, which is the way it should be. I have a buddy who lives in North Carolina, one of the big cities there. And I think the neighbor is now gone, but they had an issue in their neighborhood with the same kind of thing. Well, actually, really, the neighbor was like a dog hoarder. They had a bunch of dogs, and there was like, constant barking, dog at large, et cetera, et cetera. And the police there are actually pretty good. Like, if you called, particularly at night, maybe like during the day, maybe not, but they would come out and they would write them up. They would cite them for, disturbing the peace. But the problem was that the citation was for like $25, right? And the cops would even tell them, they talked. Imagine, you don't want to deal with this shit at 2 a.m. It's ridiculous. But the problem was that, they could just keep doing it. So the cops would come, they'd write him this, ticket for this chicken shit amount. And, 3 days
Wipe
later,
your
it would
ass with
start again.
$25.
Yeah, exactly. They don't care, and the cops even said, it's like, they were like, look, we have sympathy. And it wasn't just them, it was the other neighbors too. But that's all we're allowed to do, right? For something like this. Like that's what the law prescribes, And even that, like I said, if you could say, well, that's crap, like that's probably like a B plus. Right, even that's like, probably above average. But the thing is, it's like, yeah, they need, like, these things need to be coupled, like, to some kind of impound policy where it's like the third or fourth time, Fido's out of there. It's gone, because they've like demonstrated that they're unable to like keep the dog in a socially responsible way. But nobody does that, and nobody like supports that either, because they're like, oh, you can't remove pets from loving family homes. You're a Nazi.
It's like if you keep driving under the influence and you keep driving recklessly and speeding, eventually they'll take your license away and you can't drive anymore.
I mean, one idea that came up, and of course it's one of those like, fantasy solutions that would probably never happen, is that, and not just like dog, we'll be fair. We'll be like species, like, neutral. It's like, pet ownership should be a licensed activity, which means you bring any animal, even like a hamster, you need a license, right? Like you would to operate a motor vehicle. And the thing is like, yeah, you have, like you just brought up, like with, driving, they have a point system. And at least in most states, like the states that I've lived in, it's like, you get a speed, if you're like 1 to 15 miles an hour over, that's 2 points. If you're 16 to 30, that's 4 points, right? And so forth. And careless driving is 2, and reckless driving is 5, and yada, yada, yada. And of course, you get like every year, you get like 2 or 3 points knocked off for like good behavior, like if you don't have any incidents. But if you rack up more than like, say, 12 points, you lose your license. And what that means is if you're a pet owner, it's like, yeah, you can't keep pets in the home, and at least for the interim, And it'd be fair. It's like, yeah, I'll play that. As a cat person, I'll go for it. I get accused of being a hypocrite all the time. It's like, no, I'll go for the license. Because, like, yeah, my cat's not going to, like, wake up the whole neighborhood at 2 a.m, right? So I don't worry about it. Just like the service animal thing. It's like, yeah, let's ban cats as service animals. Great idea. I'm all for it. Oh, wait, they already did that. Because what does the law say? It says only what can be service animals? Only mammals? Only vertebrates? No, it says only dogs. But in any case, yeah, I mean, that's another, like, sort of, I guess, fantasy solution is, licensing for pet owners. So, like, Kidder's neighbors would have, lost their license already. So, but that assumes that dog own. I could see, like, yeah, they would say, okay, you need a license for every other species of pet. Like, you want a goldfish, you need a license. But you want like a dozen Rottweilers, like, nah, we'll waive that.
The people that got bit need to report that stuff, though, because if they don't, then
Oh, yeah.
there's no paper trail.
Well, that is the thing, like my buddy said. I think apparently, yeah, if you go with like the North Carolina situation, was they had issues with this dog owner. And the thing, too, is this was an HOA community. And this owner was like so way out of compliance on so many things, like, overgrown yard, trash in the yard, the whole thing with the dogs, like, the house, because, those places are strict. Like, you let your like grass grow like a quarter inch too high and they'll cite you. But the problem was with the HOA, and it's a homeowners association for people who don't know. It's like it's almost like a private government in these communities. And typically they're very strict. Like, your hedges get overgrown, or you got a crack in your driveway, or every like picayune chicken shit thing, they will cite you. But apparently, like, this dog owner, they just let her just do what, at least they just let her do whatever she wanted. And that's the problem, is a lot of these HOA boards are, converged by dog cultists who just let these people do whatever they want. So it's like, yeah, their dog could be running loose, attacking people, crapping in your yard. I've heard of that happening too. People getting cited for having like dog shit in their yard when they don't have a dog. So they'll cite you. Like, if your neighbor's dog shits in your yard, they'll cite you for having dog shit in your yard, but not the dog owner for like turning their dog loose to shit in your yard. That's how screwed up some of these places are, because, yeah, the dog, they converge the HOA board and they make sure, again, that the whole system is rigged in favor of the dog. But I think what happened was with my buddy was, yeah, the dogs have been biting people. And I think at one point, yeah, like animal control finally just like confiscated them all just because they were, and that was a whole thing too, is like, there's all these hearings and like dangerous dog hearings and all that. So after like years of this going on, finally the dogs were, removed. And they would get like, you get periods of peace, right, where they would keep the dogs under control, but then after a while they'd start to slip and the whole thing would erupt again. So, but I think actually that person's gone. So, but yeah,
And they enjoy that. They enjoy inflicting
they
their
do.
dogs.
Yeah, I think
on
they get it. They get it. Dog ownership is a way for, it's an outlet for like psychopaths to like torment and bully others.
It is. It's for like maladjusted losers.
Yeah. They get, and again, because they know that, well, they don't know, but they're confident they can get away with it because, again, we've got this one thing that's like totally unrestrained. So they know it's
it's like a 99% chance.
Yeah, they know it's like because they figure, and even though they know that, like, okay, there's a lot of leeway on it. So like if my dog bites somebody, at least the first couple of times I'll get away with it because we don't have a one and done policy. It's like, okay, maybe like the fourth or fifth time, maybe something will happen. So we were talking about even like last time with complaints. It's like, that's what I say. It's like, okay, if you call the cops or animal control to complain, the probability that they'll do anything, at least any one call, is very, very low. But those probabilities add up, right? It's like rolling dice. And I guess the thing is, like, once they, complaints, maybe they say, okay, once it complaints about this dog reaches, like, say, 2 feet in height, we'll do something.
I'm your proof right here.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, yeah, if you keep after it, like if you just throw
Been calling for 10 months.
Yeah, if you throw the kitchen sink at them, eventually something will give. But they know that too. So that's what they're doing, is like they're testing, right? They're trying to see what they can get away with because they know it's like it's a steep uphill battle for anybody who tries to go after them. But if you do it enough, like if you're smart and you're persistent, you do the right things, you can get them. I mean, it's a difficult problem to solve, but it's not impossible.
Well, in some scenarios, I feel like it is, like that national forest thing. I don't think there'll ever be enforcement of dogs on the trails, like
Yeah,
off-leash dogs on the trails there,
yeah.
because
The thing
it's just,
is like funny because I did listen to your videos, and with the director or whoever you were interviewing with, but it's very, very common. They say, well, yeah, we got better things to do, but it's a question of priority.
right.
Right. I mean, because the thing is, they don't take this stuff seriously. And I guess maybe because they think that nobody else does. But if it becomes a priority, it'll get taken care of. And I think what would make it a priority is the money making opportunity. Because that's the thing with like dog barking, even like these quote minor offenses. There's a big revenue opportunity for the government there. Because the funny thing is, a lot of their passive aggressiveness is circular. Because they say, okay, why don't you go after like the barky dogs and the at-large dogs and or whatever? And they say, well, because we don't have the resources, right? We can't expend manpower on that. And it's like, well, why don't you have the resources? Like, why don't you have the funding? It's like, well, because we don't cite anybody. Right? But that's the thing is if they actually started citing these people, they'd have money coming in so they could take, like I said, it's all circular, right? Start citing them and then you'll have money.
Yeah, it's just not a priority for them.
They don't. Well, it'll be if it comes from the top down. If you tell them, it's like, look, we need the money. Or you know what? If you don't start doing this, we'll defund something else that you do care about. They need to be like sufficiently motivated. So you can set quotas. It's like, well, I'll tell you what. And a lot of it, I don't know if this is like technically like legal, but it happens in a lot of places. A lot of places, police have like sort of unofficial quotas for like, writing like speeding tickets and so forth. You tell them it's like, well, you know what? If you don't write a dozen off-leash dog tickets next month, you have to find another job. Because if you make that like a marker for performance, there's a motivation, right? Or make it a marker for funding. It's like, guess what? Your funding source is going to be from citing these people. That's what's going to get your salary paid. And if you put it in that framework, that would motivate them. But the problem is, we need the leadership to make that happen.
Probably depend on the officer too.
Yeah.
I think the one I had here, finally, he walked in, looked at the video, and it said, all right, here's your case number. I'm going to go give him a citation.
Good. Yeah. And because that's the other thing, too, is you keep calling. Many of them are either dog nutters or they're afraid of nutters or they don't care. But people like us really aren't that uncommon, and you find them in various places. So, I mean, there's dog haters that are cops. My old blog group we had, actually, it was a retired cop from Oakland, California. Interesting guy. We need more people like that in the space. I think he's passed away now, but he was a guy who gave the advice on the I think it's pronounced writ of mandamus. That's what he was saying. It's like, if you have an authority who's like being passive aggressive, you can get something called a writ of mandamus. That's essentially it's an order by the court, like forcing an official to do their job, right? So let's say you've got, and that's what's happening in a lot of these places, is that like animal control or police are actually out of compliance. Right, they're literally.
Who do you talk to get one of those?
That's a good.
Know where to start?
It's a court order. It's kind of an obscure like legal writ, and most people don't even know about it, but they do exist. You'd probably have to talk to an attorney about it. Only somebody with you need a legal background, or maybe like LegalZoom or something could help you out with it, but. And, you know, and it goes basically, you know, it gets submitted. I guess it's kind of like a restraining order. You know, it gets submitted to a judge, and you know, it's like a summary judgment. If the judge feels it, like, okay, like it's a kind of thing. It's like, let's say the written law is, okay, if a dog is at large 3 times, it gets impounded. So you've got like evidence that the dog has been at large 247 times and nothing was done about it. You can get this, you know, writ of mandamus, basically going to animal control, forcing them to do their job. Right? We don't want to hear that you're too busy or that the shelter is full or any of that shit. Okay, you're impounding that, you know, that's what you're going to essentially make the public whole. You're going to, you know, fulfill your duty. You know, I don't know if it happens too often, but the kind of thing too is like it's one of those things. Even as a necessary fail, it works because, you know, then they get the attitude is like, okay, like somebody like is, because that's what they expect is like nobody's ever gonna go after them or even try to go after them, and now they're like, oh, but that's what this guy said was like, you can do that. And I think he had known of a few cases where that had happened, like in dog related cases, because yeah, like, you know, animal control particularly is like notorious like everywhere for not doing their jobs. Right? They're like compulsively like passive aggressive. And a lot of times too, it's like, yeah, they're not doing their jobs. They're not performing. They're not serving the public that pays their salary.
Hey, I gotta get going, but I'll watch this video when you upload it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna drop off too. I'm kind of fading fast. What do we got on here? An hour and 21 minutes. Holy crap. But anyway, yeah, I think I'm gonna stop the recording. Well, Kidder, Google guy, thanks for joining. Great conversation. And we'll connect soon. All right. Later, guys.
We'll see you.
Yep. Bye.